Welcome to Live from the Combine, presented by Moody's. Day 2 at the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen, kicking things off with ESPN's Field Yates, who has a very Jets-colored tie. I like this tie choice, Field.
If you guys don't think I pay attention to such details, then you have not been paying enough attention to how I have done on this show in prior years. Of course, I'm bringing my Jets-colored tie.
Meticulous in your preparation,
yes.
And not only will this work on a day when we celebrate the leap year, but it will work on St. Patrick's Day as well.
Yeah, I have a nephew who turns 8 on St. Patrick's Day, and this is the sweetest kid alive. I just wonder if we have 10 more years or maybe 12 more years before that sweet soul that Asher is celebrates his birthday a little too much on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, his 21st birthday might be a nightmare.
I'll be there. I'll be old as heck, but I'll be there.
Okay, so let's discuss. Well, you know what? I'm going to give you the choice. You want to talk about free agency first or the draft?
Whichever you guys. I mean, the free agency is the natural one because it happens first, but the draft is the natural one because we're here. But free agency, I think, just plays such an integral role in the draft. Just think about how much different the league would be if the draft were first. The NBA has this, right? I mean, the NBA draft precedes free agency by about 7 days, and it totally reshapes how free agency plays out, or it can. In the NFL, the opposite is true, right? I'm sitting here talking about all these needs I've got for various teams and how my mock draft might or might not go. One free agent signing could totally change 5 or 6 teams' outlooks.
What would you prefer? Because you're a guy who worked in this scouting department.
I would say the draft is always my bread and butter. I always love talking about the draft. So
Okay. Well, if you have questions and you're watching this, please fire them away on YouTube. Field will be here until 12:10, and then we're going to keep on rolling. And so let's discuss the draft.
Yep.
There's a big debate between you and your ESPN buddy, Mel Kiper, the Godfather,
the
where
man
at
himself.
10 overall, if you've not been paying attention to Field and Mel Kiper's coverage, the debate in your back-and-forth mock draft was Brock Bowers or tackle. For you, in your mock draft, that was Olu Fashanu. You are hell-bent that should be a tackle over Brock Bowers. Your reasoning why?
Yeah, so my reasoning is I think the Jets need 2 tackles this offseason. They need to upgrade both spots, and so it's going to be difficult to do that in free agency. It might be difficult to get one offensive tackle in free agency. As we know, pretty much every free agent offensive tackle that we think is a capable high-end starter is going to begin with a price tag that might be well north of $15 million per season. It could be into the $20 million per year mark. I mean, that's where we saw Jawan Taylor go off the board last year for the Chiefs, coming over from Jacksonville. So the price is going to be very, very significant, and there's only so many contracts of that nature that you can fit on the books. But moreover, no team in the NFL, I think, needs to consider drafting for need more so than value than the Jets when your quarterback is 40, coming off of an Achilles tear, which obviously Aaron made a remarkable comeback from that just to be back on the practice field in the span of time that he did. Still, I think if I were building a roster around Aaron Rodgers, my priority one would be to make sure that nothing like that happens again. Of course, it was an unlucky play, but it happened on a play in which he's trying to twist his way off of pressure, and next thing you know, that Achilles tears, I should say. So I would be focusing as much as I could on making sure that Aaron Rodgers is kept upright for the entirety of next season, and on top of everything that I've said to this point, it's a really, really good offensive tackle class.
How do you separate the tackles at this point? We're still 2 months out from the draft.
Yeah, so I think I would start here. Some of the separation inherently in the draft is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
If you were asked me to do this in a vacuum, which is rarely how it actually goes in the NFL, but it's important to note anyways, my first, and I think there's sort of a one-person tier of Joe Alt at the very top from Notre Dame, left tackle, who could play right tackle if needed, 6'8", 322 pounds. We'll see what the specific measurements are this week here, but ready-made, first-day starter, incredibly composed, athletic, powerful. He has kind of everything. I don't think he'll be available at pick number 2.
Right.
If he was, I would sprint that card in if I were the Jets. Then from there, I think it comes down to what exactly are you looking for? The candidates for that second tackle spot include Olu Fashanu, from left tackle from Penn State, played with Caleb Williams in high school, so he's used to the pressure of protecting a high-profile quarterback. Very good athlete, probably had a better year this year in the running game than he did pass protecting, and probably was a little bit down in pass protection relative to where he was a season ago. Some questions about overall stiffness, but a really, really, really good player who I think, again, is a day-one starter at left tackle. Other candidates include J.C. Latham. Overwhelming power out of Alabama. I mean, 6'5", 330-plus pounds. The guy moves people like they are. He looks like he's just, flicking flies out there. Talisi Fuaga, also a right tackle from Oregon State. bigger than J.C. Latham in terms of length and height, probably not as thick as J.C. Latham. Also, his superpower is his power. So you're kind of debating what you're looking for. If you're looking for a left tackle, I think that J.C. Latham is a right tackle only. I think that Talisi Fuaga has a little bit of ability to pinch to kick over there, but I think he would be much better playing right tackle long term. And then Tyler Guyton, I think, is one of the wild cards in the draft. Oklahoma right tackle, had 1 year basically as a full-time starter. Of course, Oklahoma's had a couple of tackles, or did last year, had a first and a third rounder drafted, so there wasn't a lot of room for him. 6'7", 330 pounds, does not look 330 pounds at all. Incredibly athletic, needs some time to develop. If you're the Jets, I think he is a worthy consideration at pick 10, but they may say, we need a player that on day one, whoever we play, week 1, day 1, we need him to be ready to go, and we can't afford for him to be ready to go and just be okay. He's got to be awesome. And they may say that 3 years from now, they may believe that Tyler Guyton could be top 12 right tackle, top 10 left tackle, which, by the way, gets you paid a whole lot of money these days in the NFL. But we need him to be that player, or closer to that player right now, and he may be a year away relative to a guy like Fuaga or Latham.
Okay, so that being said, if you're the Jets and Joe Alt is available, like, at what number do you start having those decisions or start conversations like, maybe we should go up and get this guy?
I think it would be tough to justify because of the fact that they're bereft of a second round.
Yeah.
No second round pick. You're already kind of playing behind the 8 ball a little bit. Joe Douglas obviously understands the magnitude of this season. No one's shying away from it. I think in Joe's perfect world, he would be the guy that has more picks to work with, right? He would have more swings. Because there is a lot of evidence that suggests, volume of picks can be one of the great ways to map or at least have a higher hit rate in the NFL. So my guess would be that a trade-up is unlikely because the cost is going to be fairly prohibitive for a guy like Joe Alt.
Man, I love this. When would you feel comfortable taking one of these playmakers? The 3 receivers and Bowers, do you put them in the same category? Do you put them as as a big 4? Because you said you're angling towards offensive line. We'll have to see what happens in free agency.
Yeah.
But what would you have to do in free agency where I'm comfortable taking one of these playmakers?
At least one of the 2 tackle spots truly solidified, and a plan in mind for that second spot. Like, if they land, the best left tackle who either is or will become available in free agency, we can talk a little bit of a different talk. But the reality for the Jets is that, listen, you get into the 3rd round. I'm not saying anything is a guarantee, but the Jets' 3rd round pick could find them a wide receiver that I believe in more than the comparative value of a 3rd round offensive tackle. So you have to play this game if you're not the game. You have to play this strategy if you are the general manager. Is, all right, if I do 2 different scenarios, wide receiver at pick 10 plus offensive tackle at, I apologize, I don't know specifically what number they're at. I'm guessing it's 74 in the 3rd round? Whatever it is, 74, 75, somewhere in that range. Wide receiver at pick 10 plus offensive tackle at 75 versus offensive tackle at 10 and wide receiver at 75. You might find that your grades for the wide receiver and the offensive tackle at 10 are nip and tuck. Meanwhile, you might realize that wide receiver you think is available at pick 75 is far superior to the offensive tackle you think will be available at pick 75. Yeah. And thus you say, I'm going to go with the tackle early, wide receiver late.
Before we get your perfect offseason grid, which I'll explain to you in a minute, I want to ask you about one specific free agent because you just said it earlier when you first joined us, that free agency crystallizes the draft, so it seems. The free agency window starts, the negotiating window, the franchise tag, deadline is upcoming. I want to ask you specifically about a person that I think Jets fans are curious about, Tyron Smith, the Cowboys tackle. Yeah. What do you think, one, I think a lot of people are thinking, why is he even going to be available? Because that's a really good team. He's a great offensive lineman. And 2, what do you think about the potential marriage of Tyron Smith and the Jets?
A couple Pac-12 guys, him and Aaron Rodgers. He, of course, was a USC player a long time ago. He's been around forever. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And aged very gracefully. He came into the league super-duper young. He was a right tackle in college. He became a left tackle for a long time at the NFL level, has Tyron Smith. Here's the concern I would have. He's a really good player. He might be one of the best tackles available. Health is now the concern for him. And so I think if you're the Jets, the first target is, can we find a blue-chip left tackle that's, in the relative prime of his career? Tyron's a heck of a player, but there was a reason why he had to redo his contract prior to last season with the Cowboys. They had to bake in some insurance in case injuries caught up to him once again. But really, really good player, and as much as I would love to play the perfect scenario card for the Jets and every team this offseason, very few teams actually get to do exactly what they wish they can do in free agency and then just the draft. So Tyron Smith, a worthy investigation for the Jets, no doubt, in free agency. I would just say that you have to also have an insurance plan given his age and his recent durability.
All right, we know you got to roll. I got two quick ones.
Okay.
In your neck of the woods, Michael Wenu from the Patriots. Is he worth investigating for this team in this situation?
Yeah.
And then also, I watched our live show last year where he came on, and he gave a good breakdown of where the Jets are from a money perspective.
Yeah.
Can you give us that?
Yeah, so on Wenu, that would be the example of like a player who's in his prime. Right, that's a true blue, right? He plays right tackle, which I think the market has shown that teams have started to value them pretty comparably. That would be a good example of that one's going to cost a lot of money and it's worth it. It'd be if that's a 4-year, $60 million deal, a lot of money, but he's a day one starter at right tackle. You can build around him going forward. Really solid player. He's also played guard, experienced, and yes, that would be a kind of a no-brainer for the Jets or anybody that decides to invest in him. He's one of the few offensive tackles that's between the age and the performance is the right breakdown. Money-wise, the Jets are fine. They obviously Aaron's restructure last offseason helped them in a pretty significant way, and they've got some resources to work with in terms of manipulating some current contracts on the books. The big thing for the Jets is that we are now 1 year away, less than a year away technically, from Sauce and Garrett both becoming extension eligible. It's easy for us on the outside, and certainly for fans. I'm not trying to sound like we know everything and they don't, but it's fun for us to be like, oh wow, it'd be great if they bring Saquon Barkley aboard to help out with Breece Hall, and then add all these wide receivers, and then sign this 4 offensive linemen, etc. It's all a puzzle though, right? You've got Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, who are probably going to be, I think Sauce will be the highest paid corner, and Garrett will be in that top 5 or 8 wide receivers when those extensions get done. Those are massive, massive deals. You have to start planning for it right now.
All right. So before we let you go, because you've been so gracious with your time, here is your grid. Up to you. A receiver, an offensive lineman, in another position of your choosing.
Yeah.
Free agency, the draft. It could be realistic. Oh, you're going right after it. J.C. Latham.
J.C. Latham there. Wide receiver, we're going to go with Ricky Pearsall.
Ooh,
okay, so we're looking at round 3
the catch
and 10
of the
overall.
year in that CAA.
Yeah, against back against Charlotte, and then a random. I'm trying to think of like a late round guy that.
You could do free agency too.
And you could go
wanted to go back
and
to
you could double down on a position if you want.
Backup quarterback would be good. Backup quarterback is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to go with Michael Pratt.
Okay.
Because I need a backup quarterback, obviously.
Great. Just initial it so we make sure that no one can say that EA and I made that.
Oh, if I nail it, you guys get all the credit. No problem.
Nice signature.
Yeah, that was very nice.
That was a FY. It was a poor attempt at initialing.
Well, we appreciate your time.
Of course, guys. Thanks for having
me on. Seeing you.
All right,
enjoy the combine.
Right back to you.
All right.
One of the great weeks of the year.
Absolutely. Yes. And here's look at the coming up. March 5th is the tag deadline. March 11th, the negotiating window opens, which is the legal tampering period. So teams can start negotiating with other teams. You can't execute any contract officially until March 13th, probably at 4 p.m., which is the start of free agency and the start of the new league year. For example, Laken Tomlinson, the release of him, that move does not become official until March 13th at the start of the new league year. And then, of course, as we talked about, everything crystallizes in free agency for what? The NFL draft. That's April 25th to 27th in Detroit. Right now, the Jets have the 10th overall pick. And can we just break down Field Yates's little perfect grid here? Because J.C. Latham, I think, is a guy that we haven't spoken a lot about. A lot of talk right now feels like Talisa Fuaga, the Oregon State tackle, right tackle, has been the guy. Daniel Jeremiah has mocked him to the Jets in both of his mock drafts. Field Yates as well. And here on set, Field Yates chooses J.C. Latham.
Latham's a monster.
Huge.
Big guy, and I think you listen to Fields talk and other people here on the ground in Indianapolis, the question becomes, okay, who played left tackle in college? Who projects as a left tackle in the National Football League? And also, who perhaps played right tackle on the collegiate level, but has good enough feet to make that transition over to left tackle. With J.C. Latham, I think you're talking about a left tackle now. For some people, at this point, I think a lot of people that we talked to said, hey, maybe that seems early, but hey, by the end of this week, people might be talking Latham in terms of on the same, a little bit right behind you, Alt.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out here at the Combine. Of course, the offensive linemen speak to the media on Saturday. Joe Alt, for what it's worth right now, seems like he's the top dog here out of Notre Dame. Then you got guys like Olu Fashanu. Different people have different opinions on him. J.C. Latham in that conversation.
There he is lining up
well.
at right tackle and just mauling somebody.
Yeah, he just mauls people. And to speak about J.C. Latham and the rest of the draft guys, let's bring on Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus. Trevor, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it, fellas. Good to be with you.
Great seeing you.
I'm going to prep you on this because this is Field Yates' perfect offseason grid for the Jets. We're going to ask you yours at the end of this, okay?
All right.
But let's pick up where Field left off with Ricky Pearsall in round 3.
Yeah.
You were at the Senior Bowl. What did you see from Ricky Pearsall during that week in Mobile, and what do you think about his potential fit in the NFL?
Yeah, well, as a Florida Gator myself, I think he's perfect. Nothing wrong with him at all. He's a future
Florida
Hall of
Gators
Famer.
on set.
That's
Look,
right.
I think Ricky's awesome, and I think he is a tough-as-nails type of receiver, but, he also breaks the mold of kind of that smaller slot receiver that you think, he didn't necessarily have the vertical speed. Maybe he's not a great athlete. I think he is a good athlete, and I think he's going to show this year at the Combine. I think he's going to be a little bit faster than people believe in the sprints. I think he's going to be more explosive with the jumps. We've seen some of the contested catch highlights from this guy, and he's super determined. I just think he's got a great mentality. I think that's the first thing that every time I talk to people about Pearsall, whether it's, people who know him from the Florida days or, even – the guys who got to work with him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, that kept being a theme of his. Is just like, man, he's somebody who wants to be great. And, that kind of a mentality is very, very important. That's why all the teams are obviously here to figure that out with some of these guys and start that process to get to know who they are as people beyond the tape that you see. So, Pearsall, I think, would be fantastic for the Jets because I think he'd be fantastic for a lot of teams.
His stock seems to be rising.
Yes.
How high can it rise?
Right now, I think that he is a second-round pick.
Okay.
I do. I think that you can look at high as Carolina sitting there at 33, right?
Really?
Think about it. Carolina, it depends on what the wide receiver run is in the first round, obviously.
Yep.
But Carolina is looking for a guy that they could have as a go-to player. And, if you're not picking in the first round, there's only so much expectations that you can have. You're not getting a bona fide wide receiver 1 type of body type X receiver, outside receiver where it's this, 6'3" huge guy. A lot of those guys, if you're good and you're of that size and you're that good of an athlete, you go in the first round. So instead, I feel like they have the opportunity to say, okay, let's look at it this way. We don't have a first-round pick this year. We still want to invest in wide receiver, even if maybe we're not getting the guy who we think is, Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase, something like that. We know we're going to need a solid wide receiver, too. We know we're going to need a off-the-line of scrimmage, a flanker, a slot guy, whatever. Pick this guy now. Maybe that star receiver, maybe that wide receiver 1, you get in next year's class, or maybe you could trade for him or something like that. So I think that the earliest you're really talking about him is probably as early as 33.
And the Jets don't have a second-round pick.
And I think it could go – but I think he can go anywhere into the early parts of the third round.
Okay.
But I do just wonder, it's a stacked wide receiver class, but everybody seems to like him. And if everybody seems to like him, then you think that it's going to be tough that he gets to, we'll take him in the third round. Sure, I think that a lot of teams would love him in the third round. I don't know if he's going to get there.
J.C. Latham out of Alabama is a monster, played the best conference in the country. What do you think about his pro potential, and where does he stack amongst these tackles?
I like it, and Field's my guy, so I'm excited to just rip apart his his dream mock for you guys. This is a treat for me. No, I love Field. He's one of the best in the industry, so I love all these picks. But when it comes to Latham, the thing that worries me the most with him is his overall weight, and I wonder what he shows up at here in Indianapolis.
Yeah. But
you guys know this. Combine weight is different than playing weight. Some guys will drop a lot of weight to run faster or to look a little bit better. Tavondre Sweat, it's reported that he kind of measured in it. He weighed in at 366 pounds. I bet he plays in the 380s, maybe 390s. Yeah, he's just a bigger dude and a more powerful dude. But, if he shows up at the Combine in a certain way, you get to say that. So for Latham, going back to the conversation with him, He's listed at 360 at Alabama. And I heard you mention, and you're totally right, mauler because of that weight. I mean, he is just making some of these even strong side defensive ends look like paperweights, the way that he can move these dudes in the run game and really get that push. But at that weight, is the foot speed good enough? Yeah. And I will say that the reason why I like J.C. Latham is because his foot speed is a lot better than a guy who I think is carrying over 350 pounds. So I like that for him. But overall conditioning, durability, unfortunately, y'all know that. It was a concern with Mekhi Becton, and unfortunately that's something that has manifested. I'm not saying he's for sure going to be that, but when you talk about these super-sized type of guys, it's just those questions that you have to answer. Does he have that natural flexibility? Does he have an injury history? Does he take care of his body despite being a little bit bigger? And I think those are all the questions that you got to kind of figure out when it comes to Latham and how much you would trust some really
straight
good
up right tackle on the next level?
Probably.
Okay.
I think he probably is. But, and you know, here's the thing. A lot of people talk about left and right tackle, and they go, oh, well, he's just a right tackle. Most of the best pass rushers in the NFL line up on the right side of the line of scrimmage. Well, left side of the line of scrimmage when you're talking defensive side of things, but they're going up against right tackles because for a long time, best dudes play on the left. So defensive coordinators go, wait a second, hold on. I'm going to move him over here, and you get to go up against the worst player. And so I think we're seeing a lot more really talented right tackles, like Tyler Guyton, J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, right? These are guys who played right tackle in college who I don't really carry that, but he's just a right tackle going into the NFL. Same Talise Fuaga from Oregon State, same thing. I think all those guys, you've just got to have today's day and age, there's too many good pass rushers. Defenses will try to put pressure wherever you are weakest, and you better have both tackles figure out. So even though he is only I think he is going to be a right tackle in the NFL. I don't think he's a guy that you're probably going to be able to flip over just because I think that he's got that coordination on the right side. I don't think it's too big of a negative.
That's good analysis right there.
I think it's a great analysis. And also just, I know this is a long time ago, but like food for thought, Lane Johnson was a top 5 pick. He's fantastic right tackle.
Right, not bad. Not a bad football player.
So we're taking YouTube questions. Make sure to keep firing them away. Matt wants to know Olu Fashanu, Talisa Fuaga. Let's say they're both available at 10 overall.
Yeah. I'm a Fuaga guy. I love him, man.
Wow.
I really do. I remember somebody got him on my radar because he was grading really well for us, and somebody got him on my radar in like late September, early October, and I was like, why are we not talking about this guy? He's got fantastic. I mean, I get it. He might not be as smooth of a mover, but the feet are fast. He's powerful as hell. He wants to finish you in the run game if he has the opportunity to do so. I think the hand usage is something that he does not get enough credit for, how good he is with his hands as well, because I think when you look at these guys who are so dominant in the run game, naturally you say to yourself, okay, there's got to be some sort of deficiency in the pass game, though. You know, like, is he a little slow, whatever. And look, there are guys that move a little bit more fluidly than Fuaga does, but I think that he is definitely enough of an athlete to play tackle at the NFL level, and I love that strength, that mentality, that taking the fight to defenders rather than kind of waiting for it to come to you. That is something that I always consistently gravitate towards. It's why I had Darnell Wright as one of my top offensive tackles last year, and I think that he really had a good second half of the season. I think he's going to be a good offensive tackle in this league. Fashanu, very talented mover. I think he's going to test really, really well. Everybody at Penn State always does. They have an incredible strength and conditioning program. But I think he's a very smooth, fluid mover for a player of his size, an offensive tackle of his size. But he sometimes struggles with power, and I get worried because the NFL game is a grown-ass game, if you will. That's what coaches will tell you. Like, you've got to be strong in the trenches. And when I have concerns about how you play against power, I just don't like that. So I think he's still absolutely a first-round pick. His movement skills and who he is as a pass protector, they don't come around very often. You take a chance on this kind of a player, but I don't. I like Talise Fuaga more than I like.
You want some? This is some.
What do we have? This
is shrimp cocktail sauce.
Oh, St. Elmo's.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I mean, are
we doing the experiment
live
on the show?
Let's do it live. We had Joe Douglas on yesterday, Trevor.
Did he do this?
Thank you very much. He didn't. No, this was not offered yesterday. But
thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, this is going to be interesting because for those who don't know, this is loaded with horseradish and it's freshly grated in there.
We do like horseradish.
Thank you. Are we saying like screw it? We're doing it live?
I did.
Okay.
I already did.
Okay, I'm going to go for it then. Hold on. Well, no one's saying anything, so I'm going to wait till.
Woo!
Wow, you did one bite?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's champion right there.
That's a real man.
Yeah, I had to do it. I'm a little stuffed up, so I kind of want to clear the sinuses a little bit.
Oh yeah,
It did the job very well.
little high velocity.
This is the rite of passage here in Indianapolis. The shrimp
Yes,
cocktail.
while you explain this, I'm going to do this so no one's like, "Wow, Ethan didn't take a bite." Yeah.
So the Jets. Let's continue to talk about the Jets while we taste our shrimp cocktail here from St. Elmo. St. Elmo's legendary steakhouse in Indianapolis. Jets are in a win now mode.
You got to keep a face. You got to keep a straight face. Don't do it. Don't break. Don't break.
Jets are in a win now mode, and that's not a laughing matter. What do they got to get done in free agency?
Oh, man. I had a lot of high hopes for the Jets, last year, and obviously it's unfortunate that Aaron goes down the way that he does because I was really looking forward to see that offense paired with that defense, right? And I think bringing back a lot of those defensive pieces as much as you can to continue to have that dominance is really important. Now, I know that you got a couple of key free agents. Obviously, Bryce Huff's a big one. You draft Will McDonald last year, and obviously you can be okay if he ends up moving on if somebody bids a really high price for him in free agency. But it's just you want that defense to be as good as possible because you still think the Super Bowl window is open. There's no doubt, though, you've got to go out there and get some sort of fortification, I think, within the offensive line. It can't just be all in the draft. Like, you've got to get players who can be reserve guys, maybe even starter guys to think. The needs, to me, stay the same. Some sort of offensive line piece. If there's a receiver out there that makes a ton of sense for you that you could go get. Now, I know you probably can't pay top of the market like Mike Evans. I don't think they're in a Mike Evans conversation. I don't think they're in the T. Higgins conversation. I know people have talked about Devontae Adams, obviously the connection with Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't sound like that's going to manifest. But, even going to get some of the more subtle playmakers, like a Darnell Mooney, a Josh Reynolds. I look at Arizona and how they had Rondale Moore run a ton of routes, but they never threw him the football. Like, does that mean that, okay, they're kind of phasing him out? Because I still think he's a talented player, right? Do you go get somebody like that to be a new face to maybe round out that receiver room to then complement whoever you are going to draft, hopefully getting an impact player there too? So, to me, it is a close to complete team when they are fully healthy outside of they got to be better up in the offensive line, and every team in the NFL always wants to continue to improve with their playmakers in the passing game. So I would say that those are the two areas that the Jets obviously got to hit on.
With a successful offseason for the Jets, like hypothetically speaking, where do you view them in terms of the AFC East and the AFC overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers, if we're getting even the version of them that we thought that we were going to at the beginning of last year, this is a team that can contend for a division title. I really do believe that. I mean, Miami, they're a team that I think can beat anybody any given week, but I still have my doubts about Tua consistently. I really do. If you hit him in a hot streak and Miami's playing well, obviously they could put up 70 points on you, but there are other times when they disappoint. So I think with them being hot and cold, I think that the Jets could certainly best Miami in the spot for the division. Bills are great, but I think that they are towards the end of their current winning window here. I think that they've got some free agents that they've got to make some decisions on. I think the draft is obviously big for them as well. But I don't think there's any reason to say, like, oh, the Jets couldn't compete with them. I don't think that that's true at all. So I think the division is right there for them. I really do. And I still have a lot of faith in this team. I still have a lot of faith in Robert Saleh. I love him as a coach. It sucks. It sucks what happened with Aaron last year. Little transparency. My future and father-in-law is a diehard Jets fan.
Shout out right there.
And so
plug it up.
He is a diehard Jets fan, and so for week 1 of the season, he was so excited. He's got an Aaron Rodgers jersey. We went to a Jets bar in Charlotte, North Carolina for Game 1, and the Jets fans that were there in just Charlotte, North Carolina. They're Jets Jets chanting like 15 minutes before kickoff. And we're not even in New York. We're in Charlotte. And the excitement that was there for that, and obviously then the feeling of watching Rodgers get hurt, I was just like, come on, man. It's just so unfair. So that's real. What I'm really hoping for is fully healthy season from basically, I know it's unrealistic because football is a violent game, but everybody that they possibly can, because selfishly, I just want to see how good this team can be. Yeah. I like the decisions that they've made. I like the team building stuff that they've done, and I think that fully healthy version of this team can compete with anybody. I really do.
So we talked about the offensive lineman to begin with. We know the Jets are going to try to fortify that line here in free agency preceding the draft. But once we get to draft week and a couple months away, where do you consider, okay, offensive line will continue to be a priority for the Jets no matter what happens to free agency. We know that. But with these top three receivers, and I don't know if we should just put Marvin Harrison away because I don't think there's probably any chance that he's there, but Malik Neighbors and then Rome Odunze, of course, out of Washington, and then Brock Bowers. Where do you consider I might take the playmaker here as opposed to the offensive lineman?
Yeah, so, I mean, just to touch on the first part of your question there, I've heard that there are teams that don't even have Marvin as wide receiver one. Like, there are some teams that I think have Malik Neighbors at number one.
Okay.
I wonder if there are some that have Rome Odunze because, you know, everything that I have watched and read of him with interviews and everything, he seems like a great kid.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like you're just going to love him when you get in the room with him. He seems like a hard worker, seems like he wants to be great. So if you love that big-bodied talent from him, there's a reason to think maybe he is wide receiver one for some teams. So even though it is not likely that you have a chance at Harrison, I think that, you know, this wide receiver class is so good that anything could really happen. If you have a chance to take, let's just say, one of Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, you're having the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, if Joe Alt is still on the board, I'd be taking Joe Alt for the Jets. But if Joe Alt's off the board, let's say the Titans take him at 7 or something like that. Now, if it's Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze or one of Talize Fuaga and Olu Fashanu, to me, that's a genuine conversation. That is you are actually having a serious back and forth of who actually helps your team more. I still think I would go with offensive line, but it'd be really hard to pass one of those guys up because it goes back to the 2021 Cincinnati Bengals Penei Sewell versus Jamar Chase meme, you know, like which one means more, having the pass catcher or having the pass protector and having somebody else catch the football. And so I think people normally lean towards offensive line. I would as well. But these two wide receivers are so dang good.
Yeah.
It's hard to pass them up and pairing one of them with Garrett Wilson as well. So,
what's your favorite thing about Malik Neighbors? And because, to your point, I think there's a lot of steam right now behind him. And reading most people's blurbs on him is just that he's explosive.
Yes.
So is that also your favorite aspect to his game?
Yeah, so I'll go a little bit more detailed. What I like the most about Malik Neighbors is he has an incredible gifted ability as an athlete to change direction while also speeding up. Or I should say, like, not slowing down, right? Normally when you change direction, a lot of guys have to, you know, gear down a little bit. Okay, I'm about to change something, so, like, I can't be running as fast. He, to me, at times reminds me of what Antonio Brown looked like at times, where, like, he's rounding his routes a little bit, but he's doing so because he's accelerating as he's doing so. And he's so subtle with what he does and how quickly he can do it that defenders often don't have the opportunity to mirror at all whatsoever. So, to me, that's what I love the most about Neighbors is it's not just that he's athletic, it's that he's a unique kind of athlete who just continues to show the traits of being an elite separator, and I think that's just so important at the NFL.
Okay, so now it's time for your grid.
Okay.
So, and we're going to take away Field Yates's, and you're going to have to initial yours because that way, like we said earlier to Field, that way no one knows that we forged it.
Okay. All right.
Talk us through your thought process here, and just for clarity, you can choose free agency, draft, a mix of both.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if you wanted to hypothetically take one of the tackles we've discussed at 10 overall and you think that's the best move, you could do that and then sign a receiver in free agency. You could do round 3, which we've talked about. The floor is yours. The question mark is a position of your choosing, and it could double up on one of the positions as in receiver and offensive line.
You also can make a trade if you want, but make it realistic.
Sure, no. I won't get too into the weeds. I'll let the people out there use the PFF mock draft simulator. You guys go.
Yeah,
trades
good
and do
plug.
all that.
Good
so
plug.
There we go, company man. All right, so I think I am going to stick with O-line. I'm not convinced that Joe Alt is going to be there at 10. If he is, my pick would be Joe Alt, but I'm actually going to go with Talize Fuaga as the pick at 10.
Okay.
Just because of what I said before. I love the mentality. I think he brings that attitude that you want along the trenches. I think he's somebody that both short and long term is somebody that the Jets would absolutely love. So I'm going to go with him at 10, a wide receiver in the 3rd round.
Or it could be free agency. You
free
did
agency.
mention Rondale Moore.
I know.
And Mooney.
I know. I might do that as my question mark, though.
Okay.
All right. So how about this? I'm going to give a shout-out to one of the guys that I don't think is getting talked about enough in this receiver class, a really good receiver class. And I think he's got the tape to be a back end of the second-round guy. But it seems like nobody's really talking about him, so I feel like the NFL may be a little bit lower. Jermaine Burton from Alabama.
Okay.
Played at Georgia for 2 years, played there, got a national championship, but then ends up going over to Alabama. You watch this guy, and he's not the biggest dude in the world. I think about 6 foot, like 190, 195. But his movement skills, again, fantastic. I'm a sucker for a good separator. And this guy off the line of scrimmage, a wide variety of releases and how he gets off the line of scrimmage, how quickly he can get off press. He had a very high average depth of target as a sideline receiver that was a good deep threat for them, but I also think because of his movement skills and how quick twitch he is, he could be great in the slot as well. So he is somebody who, if you get him in the third round, I think that could be a steal for them. I really do. So I'm going to go
Bama.
Jermaine Burton.
You're the only one that has said that, so that's unique, and I love it.
There you go. I'm trying to give you guys some added names
Yeah,
as well. I know
yeah.
y'all have a lot of high-end conversations about some of these guys that certainly you're taking at the top, but I want to give a shout-out to Jermaine Burton because I think he's an underrated
I think
guy.
that's a great move, and I also just want to say that everyone on the set has said Fuaga's first name differently. It's great.
Okay. I think this is how you say it.
I agree with Talisa, right?
I think it's Talisa or Talisa.
Yeah,
I can't.
okay.
Actually, I think his teammate might have said Talisa, so maybe I should be saying Talisa, but you know.
Okay, or Talise.
Talisa Fuaga.
Fuaga's easy.
Fuaga is,
Fuaga.
which is funny. That is the easy part. Yeah, so I'm going to go with him at 10. I'll go Jermaine Burton in the third round.
Okay.
And then the question mark,
Is a question.
I do like Fields' idea. I'm giving Field a compliment now, so no, I'm just kidding. I do love Fields' idea about getting a quarterback, so I'll do a different one, though.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Spencer Rattler. So,
Wow.
I think that Spencer Rattler gets a bad
Gamecock.
rap right now, okay? Because I think when people hear his name, the first impression of Spencer Rattler for football fans was bad, okay? The QB1 documentary didn't really put him in a great light. Goes to Oklahoma, seems like a hothead, this reckless gunslinger, and he kind of was in that Lincoln Riley offense. He goes over to South Carolina in the last 2 years of being in Shane Beamer's program there. He is a much more matured football player.
Okay.
And I've had the chance to sit down and talk to him, and I think he's a much more matured young man and human being as well. He has evolved in his pocket presence and how he handles pressure despite being pressured on almost 40% of his dropbacks this past year behind a bad South Carolina offensive
line was a mess.
He's got good arm talent. He's still working on the consistent ball placement, but I think he's got really good arm talent. And again, just the calmness to his game is there that it was not there previously. So as my little question mark here, my little random one, I'm going to go with Spencer Rattler here as the quarterback to invest in. Because I don't want him to start right away, but I love him behind Aaron Rodgers.
And are you saying this is a day 3 selection potentially? Or are you using your third-round pick in this scenario?
So I think that there's a chance he could be a fourth-round pick. It seems like the NFL might like him enough to be a third-round pick, but I just like to see him with the Jets, so maybe we're fudging it.
Hey, no, that's fine.
Right.
You never know what happens on draft
very
night.
unique.
Make sure to sign that or
Yeah,
initial
sign it and date it.
No, you don't have to date it. But
Boom.
Hey.
We're going signature right there.
Wow, that's a spicy looking signature.
Giant T, giant S, couple of squiggles.
Trevor, we appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Enjoy the
man.
rest of your week.
Enjoy it. Appreciate it.
Hopefully your father-in-law has some fun times next season.
That's what we're hoping for. I want to go back to the Jets bar and actually cheer on the team. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Awesome. Be at MetLife Stadium next season to experience the action and energy of Jets game day. You can lock in your 2024 season tickets to see the biggest matchups of the year. You can learn more at nyjets.com/season tickets. Again, it's going to be a fun season, no doubt about it. Aaron Rodgers coming back from the Achilles injury. We'll see what happens right now at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, because this is where really the offseason begins, as EA has said multiple times, with the tag deadline coming up, the negotiating window, and then, of course, free agency starting March 13th. So we had one half of the PFF stock exchange before. Now we have the other half.
What's up, fellas?
Connor Rogers.
How we doing?
How's it going?
We're doing
Good to
well.
see you guys.
How are you doing?
It's I'm the follow-up to Trevor. I think that's a good thing, right?
We think it's a good thing.
He's
You're
the
really the
opening
closer.
act.
You're like Mariano.
Right.
Well, you're a Mets fan.
I'm an Edwin Diaz guy.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take it. Listen.
Yeah.
He got on base for you.
Yeah.
You're doing a ton of podcasts.
Yeah, running around today. We'll do the roundabout.
Yeah.
It's fun, though. Yeah, we do the Stock Exchange. Fantasy football never stops over at NBC.
What about Badlands?
Badlands still rocking and rolling.
When you rolling out this week?
We taped before I left to kind of make this
Set it up.
clear it out. Yeah, a lot of
Okay.
work to be done here, and then when we get home, we'll take care of it again there. I'll react to everything from the combine, and it's been a lot of good stuff, a lot of good Jet stuff. I tweeted this out. Brock Bowers today. I got to sit with him and. I said, hey, what would be the coolest quarterback to get to play with? And, of course, you get the Patrick Mahomes off the top just so we cover that. And right away he goes, Aaron Rodgers. He goes, it would be pretty cool. Catch from Aaron Rodgers. And I was like, it's good to know.
Yeah,
it's good to know top of
all
mind.
your Jets followers probably ate that up.
That's the key, right? You have the part of the fan base that, understandably, Brock Bowers is an incredible player, and they're obsessed with the idea of him. And then the fan base that's, let's rebuild this offensive line first before we get crazy. And that's what's fun about the draft.
So for you, like, when you're looking at this week, what are the storylines of the NFL that you're paying attention to prospect-wise? And also, when you marriage that with the Jets, how do you see those overlapping?
Of course, how the draft's going to go. The easy one is, okay, how many quarterbacks are really going to come off the board in the top 15? And you sit here right now, you feel good about 4, and then 6 can go in the first round. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, that could be the top 3 of the draft. J.J. McCarthy's going to go really early. He's going to go in the top 15. And then when you take it to a Jets angle, well, we know what the Jets' needs are. I mean, it feels a little bit easier. They need an offensive lineman, preferably one of the top tackles, or you could look at the pass catchers as well. So you like when positions that are off the table for the Jets come off the board first. So if you assume 4 quarterbacks can go in front of the Jets, well, you like your odds of one of the top players at a position in need falling to them at 10. So it's a good balance of, hey, how is this draft going to go big picture? And then for me, obviously doing Jets pre- and post-game, being closer to the team, following the team my whole life, how is it going to fall for the Jets as well?
You were down in Mobile. What do you think about Fuaga?
I mean, man, you talk about the best run blocker in the draft. I really believe that. The way he can relocate people off the snap, I think he moves really well in the run game. He hits his spots at the second level. I think the pass pro, what I love about him is you can't rush through him. That anchor, that big frame, it's a clean 6'6", 340-pound frame. I think he's been working out around 330, 332. I think he could play at 340, and it just looks right. He's a tough dude. I think that he's gotten a lot better in pass pro in terms of the finesse stuff over the years. You want to see him continue to carry his feet with him when guys try to cross his face inside. Because the reality is when you're 6'6", 340, you're not going to move like the guy that's 6'3", 315, right? You're carrying a lot more weight with you. But because you're that size, you completely wash defenders out when you're running the ball. And to have a guy on the side of the line like that you can run behind 15 times a game, it makes you feel good. So Fuaga, he's a really good player. I don't think he's on the level of Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu from Penn State, but he's well worthy of being a top 15 to 20 pick.
Is he too rich for you at 10?
No. I mean,
Okay.
How does the board fall, right?
Yeah.
Say Alt and Fashanu are gone. That's the nature of the
Yep.
draft. If you believe he's we'll call it an 8-year starter at right tackle and a guy that I think can play right away. You know the limitations, right? When you have these faster, twitchier rushers, they want to get him playing on an island. They either want to have him set wide or they want to cross his face and go inside. If you know that, help the kid out. You park a tight end next to him once in a while. You tell your running back, hey, your eyes are going to be focused a little to the right. Because what he can do for you in the run game from day one, which we saw from Elijah Vera Tucker as a rookie, is truly be a foundational piece. A guy that the defense can overload that side because that's where your good run blockers are. And it doesn't matter. He just moves people out of the way. So I'm okay with him at 10. I think it's, you believe the trajectory he's on as a pass protector, that he's going to be an above-average starting right tackle. I wouldn't play the game of moving him to the left. I want to make that clear.
Right.
I think he's a true right tackle.
Okay, so if you're watching this, make sure to send in questions on YouTube. Connor, I want to talk about Jets and free agency a little bit and just kind of landscape, because you obviously, being a national guy, you were so tapped in with the Jets, working for SNY and growing up a fan like you had mentioned. So with the Jets free agents, the Jets have 21 unrestricted free agents. Everyone talks about Bryce Huff. I get that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a position actually that talked today at the Combine is safety. Right now, Jordan Whitehead, expiring contract. Ashton Davis, expiring contract. Chuck Clark, an expiring contract. So right now, Tony Adams is under contract with the Jets. When you take a look at the free agent picture with who's going to be a free agent with the Jets and who's also could be available, how would you like to see that play out in the next coming weeks?
Well, one, this system has been great for the safeties that they've rolled out there. I don't think they've needed to be a team that needs to go out there and pay a $16 million safety. And we saw it when they traded Jamal Adams, right? They believe their system is predicated on The corners are high-end talents. The pass rush gets home. The speed they have at linebacker is unbelievable. That helps out your safeties on the back end. You don't need to ask them to sit in single high coverage 80% of the game and be Superman, right? And that's not to take away from these guys that have had good seasons with the Jets at safety, but they're not a team that needs to allocate that kind of budget towards safety. If Whitehead wanted to come back on the deal he just played on, where you're paying him, what, $7 million-ish a year, fine. But I would bring back Chuck Clark, because I thought he was going to be a big piece when he got here, and it's a shame that he got hurt.
Right.
Tony Adams is a starter, so you got that locked in. You want three, starting caliber safeties. Ashton Davis, it depends on the market. You look at this draft, it's not rich in high-end safety talent, but I'll tell you, a guy that Ulbrich got to coach at the Senior Bowl, Sione Vaki, he played safety and running back for Utah. Different kind of dude, right? That's a different kind of athlete, and he was really good at both. I talked to him. He loved being coached by Ulbrich. He loves playing defense. He goes, I want to hit people. I want to get interceptions. Why not go into day 3 and draft a guy like that? So you're going, okay, we got a veteran in Chuck Clark. We got an ascending guy in Tony Adams. Then we're going to take a day 3 guy that's just a freak athlete, so he's going to play specials right away. He's going to help us out on our kick and coverage units. But then we're also going to develop him for when the day Chuck Clark, his days are over as a football player or days are done with the Jets. We have a guy that's going to learn behind a great veteran like him and be ready to play. I like when the Jets defensively have set up a system where they draft and develop players over time. Bryce Huff's the perfect example of that. A UDFA that sat behind guys as pass rushers and got better and better and better. They can replicate that at the safety position.
Well, I'm going to talk about Bryce Huff.
Please.
You talk to the fans all the time. Where's the consensus out there on Huff? And also, for the Jets' current situation, what do you think they should do? What should their approach be with Huff?
So with the fans, I'd call it 80-20. 80, there's just no way they want to see this guy get out of the building because they have, a little bit of the thought process that I'm scarred by is, hey, we've been waiting for this for a long time, right? We traded John Abraham many, many years ago. We saw how that went. We don't want to let our guy out the door. This dude could be really special, and he's tapped into that already. I mean, you also love the story, right? UDFA out of Memphis. He really grinds his way to being a big-time player. The 10 sacks this year. Then you have the 20% of fans that are like, we can find a way to replace those sacks. I don't care about the sacks. I care about the pressure rate. The times where you beat the tackle in front of you and the quarterback goes, okay, I have to throw the ball away or make a bad decision or hopefully someone's open. But realistically, with how fast Bryce Huff wins, you look at his get-off, right? Look at this defensive scheme. San Francisco runs it. Houston runs it. Obviously, the Jets run it as well with Saleh. The most important thing in this scheme is your get-off as a pass rusher, how fast you fly off the ball, because you're rushing from a wide alignment. You want that tackle to really be in hell right away. You want to dictate the rep. Bryce Huff's one of the best players in the NFL at that. Yes. In the NFL at that. I think it's going to be around $16 million per year, which is fine. Probably pretty close to what Carl Lawson got when he got here with the Jets. The cap went up to $255 million. A lot of people overreact to that, but it helps with your own guys. It gives you more breathing room to keep your own guys in-house. I hope the Jets find a way. I'm starting to get a hunch that maybe they will because he's a guy you just don't want to see walk out the door. And Will McDonald is still going to play a lot. This is a team that rotates their pass rushers. A lot's going to be put on his plate. But for Huff, the fans want him back. I think he's a huge part of this defense and team, and he's only getting better. I think he's a guy that can be a 13 to 14 sack guy.
Wow. Now, I know he said that he's not going to take a hometown discount, and he owes it to himself. That he's got to see what his value is on the market. With that being said, if you're saying $16 million range seems right for the Jets, if he's getting offered 17 somewhere else, you think that he would look to the system and say, hey, this is a good spot for me?
Right. That's the big question.
Yeah.
Now, if it got to 17, I'd be surprised, but you should never be surprised by the free agent market. Right. And for the Jets, they have to figure out, hey, maybe we're going to allocate this to 2 high-end offensive lineman free agents. And I get that, right? You want to protect Aaron Rodgers. You want to be able to run the ball. You want to make over that unit. And they do believe Jermaine Johnson's in for a big third year. Will McDonald's in for a big year, too. Maybe they can go find a day 3 pass rusher that rotates in and plays 20% of the snaps. Then you have to have a conversation. What is our budget going to be here to really keep this guy? But, since I got to the combine with Bryce, I've heard 14 to 16 pretty consistently. And I think you can find a way to make the money work in that range for a player like that.
I also want to talk about defensive tackle because, again, Jets have Quinnen Williams.
Sneaky big need.
Sneaky big need, exactly. So do you look at that position potentially, if you were to fill it, in free agency, the draft, knowing the pool of both, or what?
They did a great job with this last year in the veteran tier 3-ish free agent market, right? When they lost Al, nobody talked about this. When they lost Al Woods, there was a difference there, right? And obviously when you look at a guy like Jefferson as well that can rush the passer. Now, you could do both this year. Maybe you go get a guy that comes in on the 1-year, $4 million deal that you rotate in, but you could also go to day 3 of the draft. And, T'Vondre Sweat's a fascinating guy. Weighed in at 366 today. He's a second-round talent. I don't think he goes until the 3rd or 4th round because ultimately that weight is going to lead him to a role that's not, a big snap count as well. But he's dominant with his snap count. So really big need for the Jets. They've done a really good job, though, addressing it with those middle to low tier free agent signings. Let's see if they could do it in the draft this year as well.
What do you think about Chris Jenkins' kid?
Oh, I love him. I love him. But I think he's a second rounder. That's the problem with him. He's going to test really well. He's phenomenal against the run. He's got those strong hands like his dad, but he's almost a better athlete, kind of a different cut from his dad as well. And his dad's one of the best defensive tackles I've ever watched play football, honestly. He's not as big as his dad, but his son will come in. He'll be a great run defender right away. He's got to figure out if he can unlock that pass rushing talent. Right. That's what he doesn't have right now.
A Sweat.
He's huge.
He's the size
and,
of a
and he
camper.
moves really well.
He does. It's unbelievable. At the end of Senior Bowl one day, they were running routes and catching passes for fun.
Yeah.
Literally watched him run a fly route and catch the ball at at Senior Bowl with 380. He didn't weigh in. We'll assume 380.
Sure.
I mean, unbelievable.
At playing weight, not at weigh-in weight.
And a sneaky good pass rusher for a guy that's about 380.
Okay.
How much does it come into consideration for the Jets? We know about these explosive receivers at the top of the draft that you and other people talked about the depth in this draft class. Do you take that into account early and say, hey, yeah, maybe I'm not getting Roma Dunze in the 3rd round, but I'm going to get a guy who can come in here and contribute right away?
Absolutely, because you already have Garrett Wilson. He's a star, right? You're not one of those teams that's, we just don't have the guy. The Jets have the guy. Now you need the Robin to the Batman kind of situation. Okay. I have 14 wide receivers in the top 75 of this draft. Wow. Ricky Pearsall, one of my favorite players in this draft. I think he goes in the 3rd or 4th round. I think he's a second-round player. I look at him in the 3rd round for the Jets. He can play inside, outside, catches everything. He's going to test well. The Jets need someone last year that can get open in single coverage. Pearsall's phenomenal at that. That would be my guy in round 3.
Okay, so this is how we're going to close out this segment. And I'm going to put you on the spot, but I know you can handle it. So this is like the Connor Rogers perfect Jets offseason. It could be free agency and the draft. You could attack it how you want. We've had guys go draft. The question mark is a position of your choosing. So you were saying defensive tackle, like sneaky big need. You could choose D tackle, and you could choose from the free agent pool, the draft pool, and or both your Sharpies right there.
Let's do this. All right. So I already gave away wide receiver, and I'm going to double down on it because I want to be realistic, right? So we'll go with Slick Rick Pearsall in the 3rd round. He's somebody that I just like the range for the Jets, right? Rather than going out and giving Calvin Ridley $60 million or whatever it's going to be. I know some people really like that.
I'm worried about the buzz Pearsall's getting.
Yeah, me
from
too.
People like yourself.
Yeah, it was a fun 4th rounder. A fun 4th rounder quickly becomes a 2nd rounder, and you're like, well, that was great. You think you unlocked something that nobody else did.
Yeah, tweet something out.
Yeah, right, make it worse. So
bit.
Offensive line, how about this one? Kevin Dotson. He's a guard from the Rams. Yes. Nobody's really connecting him to the Jets yet. I'd love a Mike Onwenu or someone like that. We've talked about the draft a million different times, and we'll get there in a second. But Dotson, I think they want to be a downhill running team, right? That's what Dotson does in the run game. He could really punch you in the mouth and move people. We don't know where AVT is going to play, but if I had Dotson at guard, Tippmann's in there somewhere as well, AVT, and then let's round it out. Let's find a way to get Joe Alt. I don't know how you're going to be able to do it, right? You'd need him to fall. You need to get creative. Maybe you can call one of those teams, and if he fell out of the top 5 and say, hey, we want to flip up to you for some 2025 draft capital. Alt's a stud. He's the best tackle I've evaluated since Penei Sewell. I mean, if you can't get him, I'd love Fashanu, I'd love Fuaga, but this is my dream offseason, right? I get to do what I want. So Pearsall, Dotson, Joe Alt, a new-look Jets offense.
Would you pull Trig to move up if he was available at 7?
Would I what?
Would you pull the trigger to move up?
Yeah. I mean,
7?
Depending what the cost is, right? That's what it's going to – now, then if I have to trade the 3rd rounder and more, then I don't get Pearsall there. So you got to be careful with how you watch how that board goes, but – man, if you walk away with Joe Alt, you kind of have that feeling when they took Brick many years ago. You were around Brick, you watch him develop, you're like, okay, this guy's going to be here for 9 years, protecting our blind side. There's no better feeling in the world as a quarterback and as a GM and as a coaching staff.
Look, you'd feel good about having, in this scenario, Joe Alt, AVT or Dotson, Tippmann, or AVT at right guard or left guard, depending on what Dotson plays, and then whoever at right tackle. That's a good-looking Jets offensive line. That is the perfect way to end live from the Combine, Day 2, presented by Moody's. Connor Rogers, Eric Allen, Ethan Greenberg, Be sure to tune in to the Combine throughout the week, and we'll see you back in Florham Park throughout the course of the offseason.